Welcome to Christian Leadership Institute of Minnesota and beyond, School of Counseling Psychology. Today we are going to talk on genogram or family tree. When we talk about a family tree or a genogram, we are basically talking on the ancestral, where we came from. We want to look at the genetical characters, the genetical inheritance that we received from our forefathers. And these are the things that basically scientifically they say that it shapes the way we live, the way we behave, and even on the issues, how we handle issues when it comes into our lives. I am your host, Patrick Marindany, at the Tengela campus, Jesus the Springs of Healing Sanctuary. So it's about genogram. Now, genogram is a visual depiction of the family tree going back to past generations and extending horizontally to current relationships with the client and a nuclear family as the starting point. So this is when you are with the client and they have come with their issues or their challenges. When they come, the things that you've got to do as a counselor, you've got, or a psychologist, you need to understand this person from where do they come from. We are not saying that you are going to concentrate or to dwell so much on the family tree or on the genogram, but you are only learning this one for your own good, so that when you will be dealing with this person or their issues that they are going through, you know where maybe some things started from, some issues started from. You know, in counseling is where we normally deal with the unfinished business, the things that were not done. It is still with them, it was never resolved, but it's still carrying itself all along. And it's amazing that you may find that some things are wired way back from when this person, even before they were born. We are talking of the conscious and subconscious mind. So a genogram is a diagram of a family tree that includes a social data. It's basically a diagram or of a family tree, where at the top is an individual, one individual. We normally go at least about two to three families that the individual can remember from the forefathers. So it is that tree which includes social data. It generally covers 3 or more generations and records genealogical relationships, major family events, occupations, losses, family migrations and dispersal, identifications and role assignments, and information about alignments and communication patterns, according to Hartman. The family tree is a record of family members and relationships, which records relationships and connections. When doing this, you begin with the oldest known ancestor at the top of the tree and the youngest relative at the bottom. For example, if we may borrow a leaf and go to the Bible, to those who read the Bible, and we look at an example of King David's family, there is a story there that can give us a hint on what we are talking about. We had Amnon, and Amnon was a child to David, and Amnon's behavior was a foundation laid down by David's affair with Bathsheba. David kills Uriah, and Bathsheba gives birth, and child dies. Amnon Amnon, Tamar, and Absalom were teenagers when this happened. And it means that if they saw or they heard it, they learned it. We say that some behaviors are learned. So here it was learned. They learned how to cover up and how to not face issues, how to ignore hurts. So these are the things that normally happens and even in the family setup, you find that the father and the mother are going through certain challenges, and when they go through these certain challenges, there are things that are covered up, and children are looking at these things and they put it inside of their hearts, and it is laid down like that. It's like nothing has happened. And then long time, when certain issues similar to the ones that happened arises in the lives of these young individuals, they understand how things were done previously, and maybe the things that are hidden inside of them may come up like a volcanic eruption, or they may start dealing with issues the same way they saw things happening. So things were hidden and they were covered up. Absalom takes actions and calls for a family meeting. Amnon attends with his brother and was slain, and Absalom takes full responsibility for the murder. He fled from his family for 3 years. This is now after killing the brother. Each family member was hurt and needed help. Absalom could have been seen as a scapegoat. Tamar never married and lived a life of desolation. Custom was to stone or exile the perpetrator, and David did nothing. So Absalom flees after killing Amnon, and David does not address issues. Still, a woman in Tekoa pleads for Absalom. He creates a crisis by burning Joab's field. So what are the benefits of a family tree? Why do we study this genogram? We study this genogram so as maybe to keep it for fun. You also tell the clients, or you go through with the client about that family tree, and once they have learned and they understand that, they can remember their family tree, or they can remember their ancestors from certain point. It makes them feel fun, and you may find them even drawing the same and putting it somewhere like a souvenir for themselves. And also, the reason for studying this one is knowing the medical history. You may know the medical history of this family. That's why even when a patient goes to the hospital, the doctor asks them, is there any person in your family of origin who have ever had this issue? Or when a woman is pregnant and they have gone for the clinic, they are told, is there any history of a twin in your family? So there are things that it is, you got to know the medical history. It also helps to know the relationship history of your ancestors. How did they related? Could be the issues that you are dealing with here are issues that were there in several generations earlier, prior, and then maybe it stopped happening, and now it is recurring in this generation. For example, the marital issues, you may find that maybe in your family of origin, there were family members who practiced polygamy, and these things is like it stopped, and then you find that everybody in the family are now immoral, or they are not sound, especially in moral behavior, and now people will want to know, does these things, did it happen, or it is starting with this individual? So the relationship history of your ancestors is very key. Then it also helps to understanding what you bring from your family of origin to your marriage. So what you bring from your family of origin to your marriage can also help you understand one another's behaviors and attitudes more fully. And this issue, this family tree or this genogram is very important also when young individuals want to enter into marriage. It is very prudent that you've got to know your partner, how they lived, how their family of origin entered into relationships, and also you've got to understand also how you enter into a relationship, so that as you get there, you understand the issues that are facing each other. For a clinician, the genogram provides an efficient clinical summary, allowing a therapist unfamiliar with a case to grasp quickly an amount of information about a family. and to have a view of potential problems. So a clinician learns the genogram, and genograms provide an efficient clinical summary, allowing a therapist unfamiliar with a case to grasp quickly an amount of information about a family and to have a view of potential problems within that family. So a complete record includes information, a complete records includes information from 3 generations of relatives, including children, brothers and sisters, if there were any, parents, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, grandparents, and cousins. That's a complete information which is found in the genogram, which comes from 3 generations of relatives. You go to that generation of relative, and this is also a challenge to us as the class. How far can you remember? How many generations can you remember from where you are, where you stand? You don't count yourself, you count your father, your grandfather, then the great grandfather. And if you can also go further, it could be even much better. There is no agreed upon right way to do a genogram. There is no particular formula that you must follow this way when you are doing a genogram. One can almost make predictions from a genogram. Families repeat themselves, and what happens in one generation will often repeat itself in the next. Each family member is represented by a box or circle according to his gender. For a woman or for a female, it is normally represented by a circle, and for a male, it is normally or basically represented by a square, like something like that. We will look at the signs later. We'll look at those representations later. I have put quite much of it so that we can go through it. For a person who is dead, an X is placed inside the figure. An X is placed inside the figure. If it is for the female, which is a circle, you place an X inside that circle. And if it is a male, and there is a death that is being mentioned there, or somebody died, you place that X inside that square. For a person, now an X is placed inside the figure. Now the person's age at death is usually indicated within the figure. When the person dies, the age of that person is indicated within that figure, which represents that individual. Pregnancies, miscarriages, and abortions and stillbirths are indicated by other symbols. There are other symbols that are indicated there for the pregnancies that maybe did not materialize and there were stillbirths or abortions or miscarriages. So all these are contents in a genogram. Let's look now at all the content that are represented in the genogram. That is, the figures representing family members are connected by lines that indicate their biological and legal relationships. Figures representing family members are connected by lines that indicate their biological and legal relationships. And I think we should go to those symbols so that we may go in handy and we may understand what we are talking about, so that we don't just rush or go without understanding what is supposed to be done. So let's go to the. So as we say, the contents in a genogram. Context in a genogram, we say that we have a complete record which includes information from 3 generations of relatives, including children, brothers, sisters, and parents, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, grandparents and cousins. And we say there is no agreed upon right way to do a genogram, and one can almost make predictions from a genogram. That is, families repeat themselves, and what happens in one generation will often repeat itself in the next generation. And we say each family represented by a box or a circle according to the gender. For a person who is dead, an X is placed inside the figure, and the person's age at death is usually indicated within the figure. And pregnancies, miscarriages, abortions, and stillbirths are indicated by other symbols. That is what we just said. So the figures representing family members are connected by lines that indicate their biological and legal relationships. Slashes signify a disruption in marriage, 1 for separation and 2 for divorce. So if there were separation, you put 1 slash. If there were divorce, total divorce, you put 2 slashes. This represents a breakdown in family life. If a couple has children, then each child hangs down from the line that connects the couple. That is, when the couple entered into this relationship and they had children, so each child, the child hangs down. If it is a male, you find that graph, that box we said about, and it hangs downwards. If it is a female, that graph hangs downward, that circle hangs downwards from the line that connects the couple. Children are drawn left to right from the oldest to the youngest. So when you are writing or when you are drawing children, you draw them parallel. Once the skeleton for the genogram has been done, one can start filling up information. For example, demographic information, that is age, dates of birth and death, locations, occupations, and educational level. Functional information such as medical, behavioral, and emotional functions, such as if there were alcohol abuse, chronic unemployment, or people who does not want to be committed in anything, if there were levels of depression, if there is loss of control, if a person has ever been arrested, it's all indicated in the functional information. Then we have critical family events. These are the important transitions. How did one person transit from one age bracket, for example, or one issue to the next? The relationship shifts, migration, if this person or the individuals migrated from one area to the other, losses and successes, and also the resilience. The resilience is how they bounce back from the critical conditions they went through to normalcy. How did they cope up with the issues? Then, in the birth order, now these are the characteristics of the children now when you are interpreting the genogram or the family tree. These are the behaviors that normally happens, especially within the child or the children in the genogram. So in the birth order, you have older child is over responsible. That is characteristics that have been happening, and we talked about it. That the older child is normally over responsible, simply because the parents expected a lot from them and expected perfection, and the child or the parents had never had any other children, and therefore there is a way that they wanted this child to come into being, and especially when it is followed by other siblings coming into being, the older child is normally forced to mature up quickly and to take responsibility of the other siblings, and therefore they become over responsible. They become parental, that is, they take the responsibility of the parents. They are so ambitious and very drive. They are people who are self-driven. They like doing things alone, and the majority of them normally or basically ends up to be perfectionist. The youngest child is always behaving like a child, is childlike, is carefree, because discipline has not been conducted well. The parents are tired of the disciplining others, and the responsibility has been laid down to the other siblings who are coming. We say that in counseling we normally have we only have the oldest child, the second child, we have, especially when we talk of the birth order, we have the firstborn and the secondborn, the thirdborn and the lastborn. The lastborn is normally the fourthborn, and then when you go to the fifthborn, it normally starts again like the firstborn, and it goes like that. And then we have the only child who has been, or who did not found any other brothers or sisters. So when two older children marry, they may compete for power. When a firstborn and a firstborn marry, they may compete for power because each has been raised to know that they work independently and they do things on their own. When two younger ones marry, they compete for juniority. They are waiting to be taken care for, each and every one of them. And this, we are talking in counseling where there are many siblings, we are talking of the fourthborn, who are basically referred as the lastborns. So now, let's now get to the pictures to interpret these symbols that we were talking about. So we have the symbol name in that diagram, or in that from that graph, we have the symbol name, the symbol. So when we are representing, we are talking of the male, we say that we use that square, and for the female it's a circle. So we say that in the symbol we can put the age from a time as when the person died, for example, birth year with age. We have, for example, in that first symbol, 1970, when talk of the male is 47 and the figure is placed inside the square, and for the female, the name, it is placed inside the circle. Now, when somebody dies at a particular age, we put that age inside the box, as you can see there. And when there is a birth, death, and age, it's also indicated there. When you talk of the gay or someone who has been practicing similar sex activities, you put that as a triangle inside the box. Transgender, that is male to female, you put the circle and then the square is inside the circle. And transgender female to male, the box or the square, you put a circle inside the square. When we are talking of a particular institution, you can see that symbol there. When you are talking of the family that have been keeping a pet, or there is a pet there, there are people who love pets so much, and pet means a lot to them. So there is also a symbol for the pet. When you talk of pregnancy, we have that triangle, the normal triangle. On the other one, when we're talking about the gay, the triangle is facing downwards. So you can see in that diagram, when we're talking of the woman, the man, the household held is normally represented by 4 sticks, like the one which is normally used when dealing with Cisco, or when you find in a place representing a Wi-Fi, you find those 4 sticks there. So when you talk of married, MY year is married in year. So this is when people got married. So maybe it's you see maybe somebody married in this year, maybe 2005. So you put a wife and a woman, and then you connect like that. So that means that they got married. And if they divorced, there is those two lines that you are seeing here, divorced in year. And if they separated, in this where it is divorced in year, it is normally 1 slash. That is that they separated. And if they separated and came back together, so if they totally disagreed in that marriage, they dissolved the marriage, you put two slashes. So you can see there the respondent, the age, course, death, age, and course. So in circles, members of current household. If members are of the same, or they are still in the family right now, you put them inside that circle. So you can see here the index person, the male and female, birth and age, that is male, and birth and age, female. So deceased male, if somebody dies, you can see the cross inside the square. And deceased female, you can see the cross inside the circle. Age at death, or male for male, age at death for female. Then birth, death, and age for male, how they got they came into being. And then you can see the sign for the gay, the sign for the lesbian. Then for bisexual, you can see those dotted lines inside if it's for the male, and for the female, the bisexual 1, bisexual 2. Bisexual are those people who they neither regard themselves as a male or a female. They are either male or female. They carry both characteristics. Then the transgender are those people who doesn't want anything to be regarded to be either male or female, and they do things that pertain to both sides of the male and the female. That is transgender, male to female, and transgender, female to male. The institution, the pet, pregnancy, as we said, and then we said of the miscarriage, if there was a miscarriage, so that is the symbol for miscarriage. There is an X that is placed inside those squares, those triangles. Male, when a child is born and dies immediately, that is death at birth, is called stillbirth, when the child was born prematurely. So you can see there is an X inside those squares. And then that circle, that stick which has the wavy line at top, is if the child lived in more than two cultures, or a person lived in more than two cultures, especially in the present generation, where you find that somebody maybe came from this culture, and mostly we are talking here of people who maybe they intermarried and they went and lived in different cultures. So those who lived in more than two cultures, you can find there. If somebody immigrated for a male and immigration for a female, you can find the two wavy lines at the top of that, which is hanging downwards of that graph. And then now when people face the major events in their life, there is this diagram that shows that you can use when you are interpreting these lives of these individuals, that is used by therapists, and it's normally an emotional genogram symbols which shows what is happening when you are interpreting, so that you may understand these individuals. So when there is harmony, you see between the husband and the wife, we say the husband or the male is normally represented by that square, and the female is represented by the circle. So when there is harmony, you place these two side by side, and so you put a straight line from the male to the female, which symbolizes there was harmony in that family, in that relationship. When there is indifference or apathetic relationship, you put dotted lines, and mostly you can use a red pen to put dotted line, which shows that there is indifference. And if love exists, in that straight line, between the straight line in the middle, you put a circle which shows that there is love. And if both of them were in love, you put two circles or two rounds interconnecting, showing that the husband loves the wife and the wife loves the husband. In this one, the first one, is where you find that there just exists love. But in the other one, you find, I don't know whether you've heard of people saying that my wife doesn't want me to go and my husband doesn't want me to go. They just want to stay together because they feel they love each other. When there is the close friendship in the relationship, you put two straight lines joining both the male and the female. And when there is the very close best of friend, in the two lines that we have said that represents close friendship, you also make it to become like a bridge, which shows that there is very close relationship or best friends. And if in this relationship there is a discord or conflict, you join the two with two dotted lines, which are maybe you can represent it with X with a red pen. And if there is hatred, if they hate each other, if there is hatred in this relationship, you put three non-continuous lines joining both sides. And if there is the cutoff or estranged, if this relationship is no longer existing or they are still there, the husband is living alone, the wife is living alone, and the relationship is cut off, it is estranged, each person is living independently within where you put a continuous line joining each, you put two slashes between them, which shows that there is a cut flow, there is nothing that is flowing. And if the relationship, people are still living together and the relationship is very hostile, you put wavy line joining together. And if there is the hostile, distant hostile, you put in the wavy line, you also add a straight dotted line between them. And if there is a close hostile where people are, they don't want to face each other, not even a glance, you within the dotted line you join the two with the two straight line. So you can see how this graph is very important, especially when dealing with each and every one in the relationships. When the fused hostile, you find that between the two of them, the lines are very. It is somehow close to close hostile, but this fused hostile, you find that it is represented by very dark lines, and then when there is violence within this relationship or in this, it is represented by continuous zigzag wavy line, and when there is an abuse, you can see how those symbols are being put together. So it's very, very important for you as a therapist to understand those symbols. And this has brought us to the close of these sessions of a genogram. We have come to the close of a family tree, and it's very important you understand all this so that when the client comes and when they are talking about their families of origin, you represent it with these symbols so that you can understand and you can interpret them. And mostly when on your own, after you've left, the client has gone, you go through this and you try to interpret, and then you just write your own summary in their files, and when they come next time, you know what had happened or how this particular client is going through. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us. That was all we had for today about genogram. Once again, we are Christian Leadership Institute of Minnesota and beyond Kenya, and in Kenya we are we are Jesus the Springs of Healing Sanctuary, Kitengela campus. I'm your teacher, Patrick Marindany.